Today we have got something called PayShap. The PayShap application its base is a TCS platform.
Okay.
Runs over 100 million transactions. Today we launched it in 2023. Every organization has opened itself up to a potential risk of a hacker of any form.
Sure.
How much of guardrails which you need to continuously build around our enterprises, our businesses, our systems, even our personal life, because of leveraging the global expertise. We have also then looking after we also added the public sector area where we're looking at how to transform governments to make them agile, intelligent. Service delivery has always been a key issue.
Hello and welcome to this edition of ITWeb TV. Today I'm joined by Langa Dube, who's the Regional Director for South Africa and the rest of Africa. He works for a company called TCS, who you might know better as Tata Consulting Services. TCS offers IT services, consulting and business solutions and plays in areas like software development and systems integration and digital transformation, and probably services industries like telecoms, financial services and retail. But we're going to find out more right now. Please stay tuned and stick around. Langa, welcome.
Thank you.
Cool. So let's get started on perhaps like a topical issue. I think it's fair to say that the world's going through a bit of a moment. There's a lot of uncertainty politically, geopolitically, economically, technologically. There's a lot of kind of fluctuation and, as I say, uncertainty. What are you seeing in the market? What are you seeing from your clients? Are companies investing? Are they scaling back? Are they refocusing priorities? And if so, where are they focusing priorities?
Look, thanks for that question. I think certainly there's a flux that's going on in the market overall, from both a geopolitical perspective as well as just the local market. You've seen a lot of changes in terms of relations between countries, within the SADC region and within the different political groupings, if it were. But a lot of it is really about how does each of the companies that trade within South African context reimagine themselves in terms of how they change their business model to adapt to the changed environment. And I think technology plays a major role in that, in terms of how well you could find new customers, new markets, and be able to trade in the very constrained and maybe fairly complex market environment right now. Most of our customers we see trying new avenues, trying new customers, redefining of new business models of how to trade and to survive, and really thinking outside of the box about how do you do business in the very completely changed environment that we find ourselves in.
Okay. And are you seeing them kind of reprioritizing or cutting back on spending, or are they kind of just moving things around, or are they kind of upping the dials and going all out on what they're spending?
I think it's a bit of both.
Okay.
On the one side, there is, cutting down on some of the not so necessary items, but there's a spending on the things that are about shifting and changing business model to rethink how we could trade in changed business environment. In this regard, you find that OPEX is being reduced to fund more transformational projects. And the thinking process is no longer just about deployment. It's about how does that kind of deployment improve revenue, allow me to penetrate new markets, and then I'll be able to deliver much better customer experience.
Okay. And then everyone's talking about AI. Yeah, I knew you'd crack on that one. So there was some research from the US Census Bureau, apparently, which is saying that large companies are pulling back. So they've obviously, I think, went from 2022 and they do like a fortnightly kind of assessment. And for the first time since 2022, some of these large companies are kind of scaling back. What are you seeing on the front line? Are projects being kind of AI projects being implemented? Are projects kind of going live? And yeah, is anything like, what's been a use case or a kind of a situation where AI has been deployed and you think, wow, that is going to be a game changer?
What we generally seeing is that every customer is experiencing with us at different phases of it. There are successes, but it's really going to be driven strongly by what is the business case? What is the use case? It's not AI for AI purposes. It is AI in as far as it improves operations, it transforms business, it helps us to create new models. At the end of the day, there's training of models, there's data that is available, but it's how do we leverage it to grow? It's almost like IT. IT has been there for years.
Sure.
It's just a new way of doing exactly the same things. But in essence, there's still investment in AI. There's projects that are successful depending on the maturity of each of those customers in their business life cycle. And we've done quite a lot of use cases that are real. In fact, in some examples locally, we're able to save significant amount of money on one of the telcos SIM swap fraud using AI in a way that could. So it's not something we've gone and spoken about everywhere, but you just make it as part of your business operations and embrace the fact that there will be capabilities that you can do using those models, but then there's capabilities that are core to the business that you'll need to take a much more focused and maybe a little not so aggressive approach. So there's core of the applications, and there's the systems that sit on the edge. On the edge is what will drive the core, and that edge systems is where you're able to start and then grow the journey. Of course, training, of course, responsible, accountable is one of the key things that come up when you talk about AI and the role that it plays in the market as we see it today.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, I mean, you mentioned one of your clients is a telco there. Can you give us a little bit of background, just like the elevator pitch of what TCS does in the local market, which kind of what services are offered, which industries your main client base are in?
So you'll be pleasantly surprised that TCS touches about all banks, be it Standard Bank, Nedbank, Capitec, Absa, FirstRand Group, you name them, with their applications. Today we have got something called PayShap. The PayShap application its base is a TCS platform.
Okay.
Runs over 100 million transactions. Today we launched it in 2023. So that's just one example of how TCS today in South Africa touches lives of many people. We've been strategic partners over 18 years since we began in 2007. 18 years ago, we began. Our strategy has been about, of course, strategy is about where to play and how to win. We chose 4 vertical industries, which is the banking sector, retail sector, communication sector, as well as the insurance sector to start with at that time. And in each of those industries, we service the top 4 banks, top 4 insurers, top 4 retailers, as well as top 4 telcos today, with cutting edge services from both application development and management to core IP platforms, like core banking platforms that we run for some of the banks in South Africa. So we've been doing those strategically. Because of leveraging the global expertise, we have also then looking after we also added the public sector area, where we're looking at how to transform governments to make them agile, intelligent. Service delivery has always been a key issue. Bring up citizen-centric type of services. So it's the vertical industry number 5, which you've added in the last 2 years, leveraging of the global expertise that we've deployed in areas like India, Asia Pacific, and even in Europe. How can we leverage of that global expertise and bring it into the South African context?
And then, I mean, we talked a little bit about kind of futuristic technologies.
Yep.
Like I'm obviously stuck in the past that I see AI as a
Yeah.
I think it's got scope to expand. Maybe that's where I'm cooking. But where do you see the bigger opportunities? You mentioned you've just gone into public sector recently.
Yeah.
What are the bigger opportunities for TCS in South Africa over, say, the next 5 years?
See, for me, it's about really leverage. One, we are very global. We're a big company. And the trends are fairly common. Even in South Africa, we see exactly the same thing.
Sure.
AI, everybody talks AI. Data, everybody talks data. And of course, cloud. It's really about how do we leverage these three key technologies to be able to create and co-create with partners and customers, as well as community, to develop new models, new markets. And I believe that this will continue to grow at an exponential rate as we begin to bridge more and more of the digital divide. We'll be able to connect suppliers and the guys on the demand side and create new models. And there's a multiplier effect that I can see as we leverage that. So that is one of the things. The other thing is that continuously leveraging the skill. We are very rich in skill in South Africa. I mean, I've traveled parts of the continent. We have got good skills in South Africa from an ICT perspective. I think universities are doing a fantastic job in terms of producing ICT skills. How do you really leverage those skills, bring them into this market, and also learn these major disruptive type technologies, but with the mind of not just technology for the sake of technology, but with the mind of saying, how can I create models? How can I be a leader in that kind of technology? What models can I create out of the technology to be able to create a market for myself? I think that's what I see as another opportunity for growth in the next 5 years, which we will definitely exploit, we'll leverage in a very strong way from a TCS South Africa perspective.
I mean, I suppose the other part of that, part of it is business.
Of course.
The other part is technology.
Yeah.
And I think the technology moves very quickly.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't want to show my age, but I think probably we were talking, I've probably been in South Africa for 15 plus years. And I think the focus back then was maybe virtualization was just coming in. We've been through the IoT wave. We've been through cloud. We've kind of shifted to
AI.
Yeah. AI. We've talked about 4IR, which became digital transformation. These kind of trends come and go, and there's still, I guess, waves of trends. But how do you what advice would you give to your clients or corporate South Africa about these coming technologies? How to remain competitive, but also pick the ones that are relevant?
I think for me, having been an IT person, it's always been about input, process, and output. And whether we're in the AI age or we're in then the client-server age, or then the DOS age, or then the Lotus Notes age, it's been really input, process, and output. So my sense is that companies and enterprises adapted so well during COVID. During the one most significant shift we've seen in both human behavior, technology adoption, as well as ways of working. I think one of the most critical things is the ability to adapt at the pace. What we should not do as corporates is to slow down the speed post-COVID. We're quickly able to do it within 6 weeks or 8 weeks of that time. If we keep that momentum, you'll be able to adapt technology quicker. You'll be able to pivot much quicker to be able to take advantage of new markets as well as new opportunities quicker. I believe that's one of the most significant things that we can do and corporate South Africa can do. Of course, there's the issue of fear of technology. And I always ask myself the question is, how can you fear technology at an enterprise level, yet at a personal level or consumer level, you've embraced cloud, you've embraced AI, and you not really worry in the same manner that you worry on the other side when you have to make a corporate decision.
Yeah.
But at an individual level, you take those decisions. So, you got some form of cloud, you got some form of AI, you use financial technology, you use all sorts of media technology that's available out there. But at the enterprise level, we tend to zoom in a little bit closer to worrying about security, sovereignty, operations, and so on. So there's, the perceived use and the perceived beneficiation, then the risk associated with it, and the fear of trust then comes at an enterprise level when you think about technology adoption. So these are some of the things I think would be quite useful to continuously think about. How did we adapt during COVID?
Yeah.
What did we do differently then? How can we keep that DNA going as a business? That's one. The second thing is continuous learning. I think if you don't learn continuously, I think my chairman would say that there are no legacy people, but there are legacy systems. The systems can be legacy, you can modernize them. That's why you're doing a whole lot of cloud modernization and so on. But people need to be continuously learning. Also, as an enterprise, we've embraced continuous learning, future-fit skills on an ongoing basis. That enables us to be aware, relevant to customers, to ourselves, even to the community that we serve.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's almost like rose-tinted glasses looking back at the pandemic.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it was amazing like how quickly government kind of made decisions and things just moved and things happened. And yeah, I suppose like we made that shift to working from home.
Yeah.
And I suppose I was trying to think, I see Microsoft was calling people back to the office recently unless you're like you've moved beyond a certain place. So I think we've seen it like that innovation and that kind of push and that urgency is kind of sloping back down again. I guess there's the complacency of getting back to normality. Yeah, that's interesting way of thinking about it. Okay, so another trend, again, I love the research. So there's a stat that's come out recently from Worldwide Works, which says South Africa's online retail sector is set to exceed 130 billion rand by the end of this year and capture nearly 10% of the country's total retail market. Obviously, retail's moved massively online, and I think the pandemic was a big kind of catalyst for that. So obviously, as a society, we have shifted to that, as you say, we kind of using social more happily on our phones, using digital payments, all these kind of things. But with that shift, we've kind of, those things have been user-friendly. But we've kind of stepped into this fast evolving, complex world that's filled with cyber risk. So there's massive issues affecting organizations. And I suppose we kind of talked about it briefly there about the kind of staying relevant. But the organizations, the individuals. So what services do you offer in that space? And then what do you think we can do to build more cyber resilience within the country, perhaps at an organizational level, but also looking at society as a whole?
So very true. We've been able to embrace change of COVID, and the pace at which we moved there we seem to be slowing down. Yet we've opened ourselves quite vastly to a digital superhighway that we do everything through that. So the cybersecurity issues become very relevant. So we do advise, we do consult, we do integration, and we also run operations for security operation centers as a business. What is important is to realize that we've opened ourselves up completely from the last 5 years. Every organization has opened itself up to a potential risk of a hacker of any form.
Sure.
How much of guardrails which we need to continuously build around our enterprises, our businesses, our systems, even our personal level is one. Secondly, it's continuous awareness, training. I cannot stress that one even more, because it's very easy to allow an intruder into your device, into your home, into your enterprise per se. There's quite varied DLP applications and systems out there that are meant to do that kind of protection, but we are more open. And the thing is, AI is learning daily. The hackers are learning daily. So as you put the plug, as you close the gap, somebody's learning on how did you close it to try and open the next one. So back to my point of continuous learning. Even the cyberspace, it's continuous learning, continuous bringing workforce and individuals, even home level training around the risks that are out there, because everybody is exposed completely at the moment.
Yeah. I think it's a scary place, I think. Like if you stop and take a minute, quite happily pay for things on your bank card, on your phone, you kind of do all these things, you kind of order stuff online. You get calls from people. I had a call today from someone who wanted my ID number.
Yeah.
And they give me enough information that I'm like, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
But like that's me who's kind of a little bit skeptical about why people want my details.
Yeah.
There's some people who've a whole generation who've grown up on social media where they're just posting pictures of wherever they are.
Yeah.
And I think that freedom that online gives them, there also needs to be that kind of mentality of like, don't put it all out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of a wider issue probably about society's kind of skills in some ways.
Yeah.
Which I'm kind of crowbarring the next question on skills. Yeah, I mean, TCS is a global player. You've kind of mentioned that. I think Tata Consulting Services is the kind of name that people might recognize similarly. As I understand, it's got an Indian heritage. So it's kind of come from an Indian background.
Yeah.
I think it's a massive stereotype. We have to be impressed with how India's kind of grown its economy with a focus on the ICT sector.
Yeah.
As a South African in an Indian company, what have you seen and what have you learnt that you think we could kind of give back to the country, we should be kind of adopting more of to move our, I mean, I know you mentioned earlier that you think there's a lot of good ICT skills there.
Yeah.
We still have that gap. I mean, we still, I think there's a lot of, certainly cyber skills, there's a lot of opportunities there for people.
Yeah.
But what do you think, what have you learnt from TCS that you think we could apply as a country?
So I'll put it like this, Adrian. We are a South African company with Indian roots.
Okay.
So it's the other way around,
Okay.
right? In a sense that we are B level 2, we've got equity investment here. But let me just talk about what makes it tick. One is our people. People is a very important investment in a sense that we track that entire process of hire to retire of people. Because we believe that when people join our company, I've been in the company now over 7 years. When you join the company, you don't take a job, you take a career. And for that, from a people aspect, we've got programs where we take young graduates to India, 30 at a time. And the reason for that is to learn from a country that decided some years ago that we will invest in technology. And we ask them to go into our projects there, full immersion, 3 months program, learn methods, processes of how we work and how we deliver excellently to customers globally. And that begins to build the bridge between India, South Africa, and really how we can build then our homegrown talent to compete at that global scale. So we're doing that well. Then comes to the middle level. The middle level, we've got programs that assist functional, technical domain for people to move to the next level. Then finally, executive level, which is accelerate type programs, which prepares people for much larger leadership roles. So from that perspective, at the people level, we leverage the global capability to build local capacity in a very systematic way. Then you talk about how do we do work for the community. In most of our deliveries that we deliver across all industries, up to about 30% of the work we do with small, medium enterprises.
Okay.
So that's quite interesting. Why? Because if I have a project that I'm doing in a bank, for example, 30% or so of that work goes towards a small, medium enterprise. It's not just a resourcing issue. It's about a capability that SME needs to learn to be able to deliver so that they can go forward from that. If that maybe is their first job, I provide guidance, I provide quality assurance, and to make sure that they can get other jobs. It's not just there as a person, it's there as that SME. So that's one thing that's quite important. One of the things that's quite also important is a program that we do. We call it Sustainathon. We just completed one 3 days ago. It was Monday, okay, 4 days ago almost now. That one we've read about. It's an innovation program, social innovation program, about how can we leverage technology to solve real life problems for people on the ground. And the uniqueness about it for us, it's a global program. It's not just, I asked for it to be also run in South Africa 4 years ago, and the global team agreed. We said, yes, we will. We think there's merit in this program. We ran it just 4 days ago at Wits University. We had about 400 applications. We're asking people, can we solve problem for food scarcity? Can we connect farmers to markets using digital ecosystem? Amazing stuff that came out of there in terms of opportunities that people see, solutions that are providing. And that helps us to invest in those people and see those top 10 winners. Can they build those applications or proposals and create meaningful and viable business cases? They can also create jobs.
Sure.
So I'm just going into a bit more detail on what TCS South Africa's DNA is really about. And some of these things we do is because I went to a place in India called Nashik, and I realized what that model is doing for the community in that area. And I said, we should have this model in South Africa. And we began a part of that model and combine a bit of it with the Sustainathon global model. We can see creation of jobs. We can see technology adoption. We can see creation of markets for those people who are in those kind of areas. So it's quite vast. As well as in schools, there's a co-IT program. We've got coding programs for girls. It's quite a wide variety of programs that we have got involved to become relevant to our community and also to be relevant to South Africa per se, if I would put it that way.
Okay. I understand we obviously chatted in your position, the title is, let me find it, Regional Director for South Africa and Rest of Africa.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the rest of Africa. How do you see the tech landscape on the continent? I mean, I think we're starting to see more data center development happening in kind of key regional hubs. So that kind of initial excitement that South Africa was going to be the data center for Africa.
Yeah.
Now we're going to be, I guess, the regional data center for South Africa.
Yeah.
Perhaps still the biggest market.
Yeah.
But what are you seeing and what are you doing in kind of other African markets? Which markets kind of excite you? Where are you seeing lots of interest and lots of kind of spark and innovation?
Excuse me. I think we're seeing similar pattern of adoption of technologies, what we've seen in South Africa, in East Africa, and in West Africa, which are markets of interest for us, in a sense that they face the same digital divide issues, access to technology, access to internet, and the rate is still lower, though there's been increased efforts to improve that through various models that are out there. I think the telcos have done fairly well in terms of penetration to ensure that the digital divide is reduced and there's a little bit more inclusion. We see a lot of that, and there's a bigger focus on cloud in the market. There's a bigger focus on AI as well. We're seeing a very strong appetite for AI factories, even in the continent, and they build a big build of data centers. And what the customers down south worry about data sovereignty, the East region is worrying about the same thing, and the West region is worrying about the same thing.
Sure.
Coincidentally, hence I'm saying, whilst Global South is going through its phase, but there's not too different to what West and East is going through at the moment. So, but we see those opportunities in that. We see a lot of opportunities in also leveraging that skill. Again, it amazes me every time I go into any of the countries in Africa, realize the amount of tech skill that's available.
Yeah.
A lot of technology savvy people are there. My apologies. There's a lot of technology savvy people who are there, having leveraged things like M-Pesa, for example. Whether it's USSD based or feature phone based in that tech space, or some of the other lending platforms that are there like MTN, Momo, and so on. But there's a lot of interest and there's a lot of need for digital inclusion, which goes beyond just lending money. How can you help my business grow? How can we create a platform for you to be able to trade and also create insurance and create other mechanisms of collaborating and creating ecosystems for people to be able to grow their business in a much more structured way?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. There's no kind of, and I guess that's the kind of the age-old phrase that it's not the United States of Africa. Every country is different. Every country is unique.
Yeah.
There are obviously some common industries across them.
Yeah.
I guess agriculture in particular.
Absolutely.
And for you, I'm sure financial services is kind of a strong one. I'm sure the communications, the telecoms is kind of consistent across all of those. And public sector, is that kind of something that you're playing with across Africa, or is it?
Absolutely. We are, of course, we are working with some of the governments in Africa to look at, again, how they can improve, modernize, for example, their tech systems, because an efficient government is a government that is able to bring revenue and to be able to disperse that revenue accordingly to the needs of the fiscus. I think we are assisting a few governments in the African continent in doing just that. There's still a call for responsible government, agile government, and government that is also adaptable and that is more transparent. So we've got initiatives and solutions that can assist that. Also visible, and also that facilitates communication as well as visibility and ability for people to trade in each of those countries effectively.
Okay. And what, perhaps as a closing question, what excites you most about the future of technology in Africa?
For me, it's the art of the possible. Every time I go, I see that there's an opportunity to create markets. There's an opportunity to create demand to ensure that the demand, the suppliers and demand, there's a match, leveraging technology. And I think there's still a lot. Part of it comes from what I just learned from this recent Sustainathon event that we've had. Just the sheer volume of, especially just in agriculture, for example, we talk about food security, but there's just so many farmers that are producing so much in different places, but they lack markets to be able to trade. And yet there's other markets where there's surplus. So the opportunity to still leverage technology to create new markets, to enable consumers to meet the wholesalers and the supply and and the retailers in that kind of fashion. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I see that continuously available. And also the ability for younger people to engage technology to create themselves businesses that can just be global. See, again, back to my earlier point, the advent of COVID helped us to think globally. And you can with technology. And in Africa, we've got so much resources that we can make available on condition the market is open, but technology still has a huge role to play. And I see that another aspect of it is financial inclusion, which is really enabling those businesses to be included, to do beyond transacting, to lending, to insurance, to risk management, holistically, and bring them part of the larger ecosystem. There is still a mile to cover. There's still a lot to do because of the fact that we still have not fully covered the continent from a technology core network perspective to end to the right price point that people can do this quite easily.
Sure.
So that is quite an exciting thing for me for the continent. Creating more markets, inclusion, supply and demand, and creating those value chains that we had imagined during COVID. I think they can work now.
That was great chatting to you today. Thanks, Langa.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
That was Langa Dube, who is the Regional Director for South Africa and Africa with TCS. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe.